OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. comes in our list at number 5 this week. In only 12 games played, he had 91 catches, 1,305 yards, 14 yards per catch, 12 touchdowns, and 57 first downs. In best wide receiver seasons in NFL history, he became second with 197 fantasy points, only behind Randy Moss' 1998 Minnesota Vikings, which he had 228 fantasy points. Odell Beckham's 197 fantasy points in 12 games puts him on top of anybody who ever played wide receiver position in fantasy football. Even with Victor Cruz coming back, I believe Odell Beckham Jr. and his whip dance to be selected in the first and second round in ESPN standard drafts all over the world. Guy who wears number 88 and had that controversial catch in the playoffs and had 88 catches this year, Dez Bryant of the Dallas Cowboys. He had 1,320 yards, 15 yards per catch, and 16 touchdowns. That's incredible for a wide receiver, the most in the NFL. He was throwing up the X all season long. I expect him to do the same thing next year, but you gotta watch out for that franchise tag. If he goes through a whole season without training camp, that could be trouble for his fantasy numbers. But if he can sign back, can have a whole training camp, get in connection with Tony Romo in the offseason, I expect Dez Bryant to go in the second round and continue to throw up the X year after year. Jordy Nelson of the Green Bay Packers comes in at number 3. He had a fantastic 2014-2015 season. In 16 games played, he had 98 catches, 1,519 yards, 13 Lambeau leaps, and averaged just under 95 yards a game. He showed everybody he was Aaron Rodgers' favorite target and turned in a masterful season. Last year in ESPN standard drafts, he was picked in the 3rd or 4th round, and I expect him to be picked even sooner this year. Jordy Nelson will continue his success as soon as he stays healthy and Aaron Rodgers keeps throwing the ball to him.
Going deep, looking for Demaryius Thomas. What a catch.
Our number 2 best fantasy wide receiver is Peyton Manning's favorite target, number 88, Demaryius Thomas. In the 2014-2015 season, he had 111 catches, 1,619 yards, 11 touchdowns, averaged 15 yards a catch. By scoring 223 fantasy points, he topped the 200-point plateau in consecutive seasons. That makes Thomas only the 7th NFL wide receiver to do that since 1960. If Peyton Manning comes back and Demaryius Thomas stays with the Broncos, I believe he will continue his success into next season. Our number 1 fantasy wide receiver of the 2014-2015 season is who else but the Pittsburgh Steelers' own Antonio Brown. With an incredible 129 catches, he had 1,698 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 85 first downs. With 251 fantasy points, that put him at 6th most ever by a wide receiver in the NFL since 1960. With 129 catches, that was 2nd most in the season in NFL history, only behind Colts Marvin Harrison's 143 in 2002. These catches made him extremely attractive in PPR scoring. With 380 points in PPR, that was 2nd ever, only behind Jerry Rice of the San Francisco 49ers. Even after this historic season, it's going to be hard to replicate, but I believe Antonio Brown will be one of the first fantasy wide receivers taken in next year's fantasy draft.